So today we're going to talk about purchasing, specifically purchase requisitions, as well as looking up purchase orders and records related to purchases you may have done in the past or you're currently waiting on to arrive. So if we go into the menu structure, we go into material management, we go into purchase management, and in the entry edit process area, the available menu here is requisition entry. Just open this one up. So there's really two main methods in Epicor to purchase materials, parts or services really. So the one method in prior sessions we talked about was through the jobs, so either through maintenance job entry or through manufacturing job entry, and this allows you to typically purchase materials direct to those jobs for materials that are already listed on the job. Now that's useful for users like the production department who need to import a full bill of materials and then start purchasing and fulfilling their purchase requirements directly from that bill of materials. However, there are some intricacies involved with that, with setting due dates and setting up operations and ensuring the material demand is fulfilled in the correct way, and it goes through to PO suggestions. There is a simpler way to carry out ad hoc purchases where you may not have access to job entry, or you're just simply adding, or you are purchasing to a job, but then this method allows you to add material to the job automatically. So you don't need to go into the job entry interface. So this really is designed for those users who don't work in job entry often, for users who don't have access to job entry. So administrative users, let's say HSE or HR or IT and other departments. And this is the way we can request purchase of materials or services or other various parts. So requisition entry. So to start us off, just see, 1 second, yep, here we go. So new requisition. You notice that if you need to review the exact steps, there is a user guide available for this. So just click that using this button there. Your name should default populate here as the requestor. I'm just using a test user at the moment, so that's why it's defaulted to test. This comment section here is just some overall comments for this purchase. For example, when you're sending it on for approval, you can write some general comments in here as to what the purchase is for, some other descriptions relating to this purchase specifically. So the next step is to add a new line to the requisition. New lines. So, and then we'll go through each of the sections here. Right, so whenever you're purchasing something using a requisition, you can purchase it for one of three reasons. You can either purchase it to inventory, so you're buying some raw material, you're buying some fasteners, or you're buying some other potentially maybe long lead time items like some thruster motors or something like that. So maybe even before you've set up the entire project or you set up the jobs, you might want to purchase some very long lead time items into inventory and have them issued to the job at a later date. Then you can use this method to purchase those materials to inventory. You can purchase it directly to a job, in which case you need to specify the job number, or you can purchase it to expenses. So that's overhead, office expenses. If you're purchasing IT equipment or if you're purchasing training, you purchase it to the other. Job material, I'm going to go through the other method, but effectively job material is the same except you've specified the job number. And then what happens when the requisition is approved, at that point in time, this part gets added to that job automatically, and then it goes through to the purchasing department in purchasing suggestions for them to go create a PO. So this method saves you from going into job entry and adding those materials directly to the job. The requisition workflow will add it to the job for you. So if you're purchasing for other, you go and pick a part number, or you enter a part number in. So you can either use a TMT part number, or you can add what we call is a part on the fly. So I just describe the two differences at the moment. So TMT part number is obviously a part number from our database. You know, there may be a drawing attached to it, or it's a specific part, or there's a standard part like a hydraulic fitting or a fastener from our database. The alternative is you can enter a free-form text, purchase of training for something or other. Of working at heights training, for example. So this method is called using a part on the fly. So what it doesn't do is create a part number in our database. It doesn't need the use of a part number in our database, and the reason for that is it's an ad hoc purchase. It may be once off, or you may only purchase this thing again, you know, maybe in 2-3 years time or several months time, and you don't actually need it to be in our part number database system. And so it's effectively an ad hoc purchase. So that's the part on the fly method. The next important part, when you're purchasing to other, it's important that you pick a part class. So you notice there's a note here. It says leave as default if auto-populated. So if you use one of our TMT part numbers, each of those TMT part numbers has a part class already defined on it. So that's a default for that part. So you just leave that auto-populated when you put in the TMT part number. However, if you're doing a part on the fly, it's very important that you pick a class. So when you're doing a part on the fly, it's important not to use a stocked part class unless it's auto-populated. And what I mean by that is these four part classes which have the word stocked behind it, you mustn't use those unless the system has auto-populated those numbers. They typically get auto-populated from quantity-bearing TMT part numbers. So those are part numbers which we're able to keep and hold in stock. So for the other part classes, this one is a training, so you can go training admin or training operations workshop. There's other part classes in here such as software licenses, professional fees, you're buying some assets greater than US $500, other various equipment, or just general materials. So there's a whole host of different reasons why you might be purchasing this part. The part class is important because it puts the costs of this part into the right expenses account. So it's quite important for you to choose the correct part class. If you're unsure, you can always ask. So you can ask the purchasing department, you can ask the finance department, or you can also clarify with the ERP department what a specific item, what the best part class is, if you feel that the ones available in the list aren't suitable for you. So for this training one, training admin is probably the best for that. Specify due date for it. So let's say it's due by the end of the month. Specify a quantity, you're only training one person. And then in here you pick a supplier. So I'm just going to pick a random supplier. It's a little bit slower today in the test system. So this supplier is obviously not a supplier for training, but this is just for illustrative purposes. You can type in the first few characters or first few letters of a supplier's name, and then it will drop down that menu and give you some options for those letters. Just let that load. And in the next section here, this box stays blank, but what you need to do is just put PUR in there. This PUR just points it to the right email account, the purchasing account, as opposed to the account where we send invoices or remittances when we pay a supplier. So PUR is filled in, ensure the quantities are correct. If it's taxable ticket, if GST is already included in the price that you were quoted or that you were provided by the vendor, then untick this, right? So when it's taxable, that means you're putting in a non-GST price. When this is cleared, this checkbox is cleared, then you're putting in the full price inclusive of GST. So let's say it was $100. You can also pick per amount. Most cases it's per one, and then we go from there. Obviously the currency defaults to the supplier's default currency in the system, and for most cases it's Australian dollars for a lot of our local vendors here. And then that effectively, when you save that, that creates your first purchasing line. You can add some comments. So these comments will appear against this line item on the purchase order that's sent to the vendor. So you can say, please book in for. Right, so there's some additional comments, and you can have different comments for each new line within the system. So let's just create another line as an example, one which is to a job status release. I'm just picking a random job. Normally you would know the job number prior to doing this. So you notice when I pick a part number from the database, it will auto-populate the class field here, and then you just pretty much leave that as is. So you skip this part, you skip the description part. You can specify a revision if it is a revision controlled part, so you make sure you pick the correct revision, and then you go on to fill in the rest of the fields. Now, one good thing here, this purchase advisor, for a given part which may have been purchased in the past, you can always query its information. So you just click purchase advisor, and what it'll do, take that part number, populate it into here, and then you can see, do I have any currently on order? This part has none. Do I have currently anything in hand? This part has none. Do I have any price list currently or approved prices for it? Currently it has none, but if there were, then you can view some pricing. Have I purchased it before? You can view previous purchase orders in here, and you can see the pricings against a given part. So that's quite useful for querying part data. So then you go through and populate the rest of the data. $10, and let's put some random comments. Right. So at the end, when you're all done, just go to the summary tab, and then just have a review. So you'll notice that on a requisition, unlike so the expectation might be you raise one requisition per supplier, but actually you can raise one requisition for multiple different suppliers and also multiple different types. So you can raise a requisition which has 3 lines. You can raise one line to expenses or other. You can raise one line to jobs, to a job, and raise one line to inventory, right? And they can all be for different vendors as well. So don't feel restricted that when you're raising a requisition, you need to batch it for a specific supplier. That's handled by the system on the side. Once it's approved, it goes into purchase suggestions, and then the purchasing officers will group suggestions from everyone, from requisitions, from other jobs, from other requirements together, and then send out a single PO. So a single PO may be batched together with your items as well as somebody else's items, and that just provides efficiency and helps to reduce costs through volume purchasing with our vendors. So this summary tab is good just to review all of your data before you send it on for approval. So have a look, check the type is correct, check the job number is correct, check the parts, descriptions, classes, quantities and pricing, any comments that you may have put on the purchase line, check the vendors are correct, and also check your due dates. The rest of the details are only referenced. So once a purchase order is raised, you can return back to this requisition and you'll be able to see the purchase order number and the line that it's referred to. So you can always reference purchases that you have ongoing in the system through that method. So in order to send this for approval, go to Dispatch, Requisition, go to Action, Submit for Approval, pick your dispatcher. You can write some comments there, and then you send it off for them for approval. I'm not going to send this one. You can always check the status where your requisition is at by going to the View Actions log. So once you've submitted for approval, you'll see an actions log in there saying that's pending approval. And then once the approver has approved it, then you'll see a new line on the actions log saying sent to purchasing effectively. So you can track the progress of your requisition at any given time using the View Actions log. And that's about it for requisitions. Fairly straightforward, fairly simple and easy, and this just allows you to purchase either to jobs, to inventory, or general expenses that you're buying to our company's expenses account or to our overhead account, right? So we'll just close that. Tracking purchases. So in this tracking section, we've gone through job trackers and all of that. We've just talked about Purchase Advisor. This is a very useful tool. You can go directly here at any point in time. If you know the part number, you can throw the part number in, and you can let's see what I can, something that's potentially been purchased before. At any point in time, you can query a given part number's information, purchase information, any on order, any on hand, price list, any purchased before. So you can view purchase history and last ordered price information using the Purchase Advisor. If you have a purchase order number, you can open Purchase Order Tracker, and you can review the exact purchase order that was created. So let's see some open purchase orders as an example. You can also search for a purchase order based on supplier. So let's just do that quickly. There's any, or Intricut, for example. Yes, there is few. So let's open this one. So let's say you're querying this purchase order. All right, so you can view there's only one line, one attachment, which is the quote for this. A profile part was purchased. You can look at the details of that part here. You can see it was purchased to a job. You can see what job number on the Releases tab. You go to here, job number 103332, assembly 12, material number 70. So that points exactly to where this material demand came from. Quantities. And if it was ordered through a requisition, you will see a requisition number here, and you can right mouse click open with either entry or tracker to review those requisition details. So that's another good way of seeing it. You can track whether a given line item has been receipted. So there's nothing returned here at the moment, but if this line item was receipted, retrieve it, you can see when it was receipted in stores, what date, and who performed the receipt. So if you need to track any specific purchases, when they was receipted or what happened with it, then you can track it through here. The other good thing is people often ask is how to view the exact PDF that was sent to the supplier. So you just go here to the print. You leave this all default. You go to print preview, this little magnifying glass. And then we'll let it generate. While that's loading, so just generate the PDF. There's some other trackers in here which are useful. Requisition tracker we talked about. If you want to track about serial numbers, we talked about that in inventory management. You can also go to supply tracker, is quite useful. So if you want to query all the purchase orders for a given supplier, then you go to this screen, go to supply tracker. So let's say we want to query again, just using Intracut as an example. We want to see the order history with Intracut and any other details. So you can look at, for example, what is the Intracut's email address, contact details, what's their terms of what's their purchasing terms, 30 days from invoice, and the most useful area here is links. Purchase orders, you can review open. So you see a list, probably about 4, I think I saw 3. Close purchase orders. Should be a long list. And all. And you can also filter by specific dates in a specific range. So any one of these, you can have a look at the history, you can look at the unit price, you can right mouse click, open with purchase order tracker to review any of these purchase details. Oh, and there's our purchase order. So this is the PDF that gets sent to the vendor, and that's that step before is what I showed you, how to see exactly what was sent to the vendor. So you notice that comments, there's none on here, but comments will effectively be, there is a quote reference here, but the comments will come in under each of the line items if you have put comments in there. So we'll close that. So supply tracker is very good. You can also look at invoices, for example, if you're chasing up whether they've been paid or not, but often you can just you can go and query the finance department for that sort of information as well. Supply tracker, receipt tracker. So if you want to query a specific receipt that that the stores person has done, when I was in purchase order tracker, you saw that there was this receipt menu. There will be a receipt number, which is the packing slip. You can open that, right mouse click, open it in receipt tracker and query those details if you so wish. You can also query specific invoice details in invoice tracker as well. What exactly they were paid, for example. And supplier relationship management, this is pretty much the same. And one last one to round out purchasing, dashboard. Supplier dashboard, let's have a look.
That's it. Yeah. So hopefully if I can figure this out so that I don't have to
this one's probably more useful. Oh yeah, this is more useful for the purchasing department, but it's just a dashboard which shows all given suppliers and various details relating to the suppliers, what country they're from and all of that. So this is probably less useful for the general user, more useful for the purchasing department. All right, that wraps up purchase management and querying purchase orders within Epicor.
Hopefully they join the two together.